Yes, folks, welcome back again to the Nick and Dad podcast. Wherever you're watching this video, whether it is the original YouTube channel of the Nick and Dad podcast or Nicardo Media House or Daniel Talk Football, so we're to just to give some quick facts reaction of big World Cup is happening at this moment. Some huge drama surround the World Cup. You're talking about the five-time champion. You're talking about the team that won three major titles in a row. Spain, yes, Spain held by Cape Verde as well. Lots of reaction to come as well. Seeing Turkey, get beaten by some minnows as well. Germany 7-star as well, in this World Cup. The last time they did that, they go on to win that World Cup in 2014, beating Argentina with a Mario Götze goal. But yes, Daniel, there again, we got some reaction on the World Cup games. We're going to get you probably roughly around six group, but it's going to be quick and concise as well. Where you stand, with this World Cup as you looking at it hindsight.
Yeah, I think I've been very excited. I think a couple of the big boys have played so far. Still to go, the top guns: Argentina, France, England. You get what I'm saying? But a lot of games I've played and I've not been bored. Every game I've been very excited. You get what I'm saying? So here to discuss all those games and you go from there.
Yeah, this the game that played just around the corner from you that play on the Bayside. The Qatar game versus Switzerland. You watch that game. It was early Saturday as well. What was some of your reaction around that game? I know the Swiss team created so many opportunities. You're talking about Endoy, Vargas, Bril Mbolo. It was a controversial. I want to get your point on that as well. It was a controversial penalty with the I think the call that was made before, they said that it was offside, but they look at it initially and they said it was good. Bril Mbolo scoring in his third major tournament for the Switzerland team. But where you stand around that game and the reaction to the controversial offside before the penalty kick, and what you think about the Qatar team with Julian Lopetegui?
Yeah, I think on the penalty, I think it was a straightforward penalty. I think the keeper, I think if that was anywhere outside of the box, that would have been a straight fall. I think the keeper came and he missed the ball completely and he basically collapsed into the keeper. So I think it's a penalty right away. And then the offside was a very, very 50-50. You get what I'm saying? But I think that game was very balanced. If in the first half, you could have said Switzerland kind of dominate up to the 30 minutes until Qatar able to find their feet and get back into that game. And they were very impressive, especially in the second half. They were pushing. I don't know what happened to Switzerland. I was very disappointed in Switzerland. I think Switzerland, I have Switzerland to win that game very convincingly, but they just couldn't get going. I don't know if there was the heat in the California. So I think Qatar was a very good deserved points for them because they pushed and they were pushing the second half and they finally got that equalizer.
Yeah, I think when I look at that Switzerland team, you have so many big names. You have Forla, you have Xhaka, starting in that midfield. You have Akanji, you have Zakaria, you have Rodriguez, Vargas, Endoy. So many experienced players. And I think this Switzerland team, sooner or later they're going to have to start to put in, implement a lot more youngsters into this team. But it's a very well team, organized. And I can say this, the Swiss team, I don't think they will go into the next two games, panicking, especially you have the best of 8 third spot will go through. And if you look at the last two World Cups in Qatar and in Russia, they were in the group of Brazil and they managed to finish second in those two groups as well. And one of their issue, through, playing World Cup qualifying, and not World Cup qualifying, but playing in World Cup games, they scored less than double digits in the last two editions of the World Cup. And that tells you that, in Russia, it was 5. And also in Qatar, I think it was around 4 goals as well. So that's around 9. So it's not a team that's going to blow you out of the park. We see Germany score just over 85% after two World Cups that Switzerland played in to score goals. So I think the Swiss team they will get by at some way. They're going to find a way out to get their heads into this knockout round, which they usually do in the last two. So let's see if they can get in. You see any chance of this Qatar team? They're very poor after the last World Cup with Netherlands, Senegal, and I think Ecuador was in that group. They lost all three games, but you see, this is their first point in the World Cup. But any chance of them getting anywhere, in that knockout round?
Yeah, I think they look like a solid unit this time. They look like they have ideas of what they want to do. They look like they look very decent going forward. I like the Brazilian born Junior. I think he looked very impressive. He get a couple chances in that game, and I'm not the biggest fan of Lopetegui. We know his history of coaching in Europe, but he seems like he has got them on some ideas and some tactics to going forward. So
Yeah.
I think they're gonna give Canada a lot of problem in that next game. I think that game is gonna be very competitive. You get what I'm saying? So I think they have a chance. You get what I'm saying? Because I don't think anybody give them a chance, including us. I don't think none of us give them any chance against Switzerland. So I would not be surprised if they got a result against Canada, even another draw.
Yeah, look at Group C at this moment. We're talking about Group C, a group that Scotland, who haven't made a major tournament over the last 2 decades. Yeah, looking at it where they lead in Group C, where Brazil and Morocco drew 1-1 as well in New Jersey. Big point, I would say for Morocco. I think they should have won that, but they let that one escape. But they managed to get a point, so it's huge moving forward as well towards Haiti and Scotland in their last two games. But how would you really sums up the Group C with Haiti? Played so well. Many people would say they got robbed. Many people would say Scotland escaped by going, the end of the game with 3 points. Brazil lost two, points as well in that game where they dropped versus Morocco. So you sums up Group C with those four teams.
Two very competitive game. You get what I'm saying? Both games are very competitive. That Brazil and that Haiti Scotland game. I think Brazil have escaped. I think if there was a if Morocco they have some more quality up front, they would have won that game because they have Brazil on the back foot. You get what I'm saying? Dominate the midfield. You get what I'm saying? And then just kind of run out of a little bit of energy in the last round, and then Brazil kind of come back into that game, and then in the second half, I think both teams was pretty much happy with a point. You get what I'm saying? Didn't want to lose the game. And also that Haiti Scotland game was very competitive as well. I think people would have said Haiti was very dominant too. They lost that one goal, and basically Scotland say, you know what, let's just defend for the rest of the game. And very controversial around that penalty for Scotland. Now, as you said, I don't know how VR didn't look over that, but I think Haiti can be positive going into the next game against Brazil, but I think they should have got at least a draw from that game.
Yeah, I think the Haitian do deserve a big opportunity in that game to actually get themselves a point would be their first point in the World Cup as well. With the Scottish team, very disappointed with them as well, knowing the figures that they started in that game. I would say maybe Steve Clark, probably the starting 11 was a bit controversial of using two number nine up front, and McTominay playing double pivot with Louis Ferguson as well. But he made a few changes and it slightly look a little better. But once they scored that goal somewhere around the 30th minute, they decided that that was it for them, and I was a bit surprised. And it's so funny that Scottish media talking about that they can build on something when they have the two best teams in the group, where I cannot see Scottish gain any more point in this group. I think they're going to have to hope that the rest of the teams really fell below wayside where they can get one of those best third spot, because they missed the opportunity to score lots of goals versus the Asian team. Even though they hit the post a few times as well, they created massive opportunity in the game for themselves. They didn't just like Haiti didn't clutch enough, to get those goals in the back of the net. 80, Peru got that big opportunity in the back end of the game. You would say, if you wanted to fall to someone, it would have definitely wanted to be him, the most lethal man up front. Isidore came off the field as well. They didn't really show much, but the Brazil game, I think looking at that game, I'm still wondering how did the Brazil manage to walk away with a point in that game? Because when you look at the defensive line of Morocco, the midfield and the forward sidebar, every one of those departments they were much more a better departments than the Brazilian team. Probably the two best players and to show up for Brazil. Probably would say, that goal kind of bail out Vinicius Junior a bit. But the two center half, it was crazy. It wasn't their best game, but arguably it was one of their better up performance, out of the entire players that played for the Brazil team. But the goal that they scored, it was right down the spine of this Brazil team. And it's something that it's been trending, with this Brazilian team hitting them as well in the spine, right in the guts. It goes all the way back to the Copa America when they have midfielders like, Andres Pereira playing in that game, Gomez playing that game, Bruno G as well. So you're looking at some players as competing in the middle, for the Brazilian national team, a prestige department where they normally have very luxurious players. Players are playing, some mediocre, average European teams are getting into Brazil. Look, Fabinho came on for Casemiro, and it took someone, who is way, beyond where, he should be at this moment. Fabinho has passed his best. He's playing in the Saudi Pro League, and you're wondering, like, that's the best option off the bench for Brazil to come and change the game. So it tells you that, there's a lot of issue with this Brazil team. And for Paqueta, we know Paqueta very well, for West Ham during his days in the Premier League. He's not the most clever, number 10. He can score goals, but he's not that Brazilian player that's going to take up the game by the scruff of neck. He's very untidy player. His ball control is very poor. His IQ level is very poor. His ball position awareness on the field is very. It's like everything is so poor about this player, and you're wondering where Carlo Ancelotti is going with some of these players. Look, Thiago. Yes, he was very poor in the game, but a lot of his stuff happened. Didn't really create much for him as well. But again, he didn't really help himself of getting into the game. And you're wondering why Hendrick didn't get a feature off the bench. That's what I'm saying. You want to bounce on that and the Hendrick.
Yeah, I think going forward, I hope Ancelotti make some changes, but you don't want to bring down the Thiago, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Thiago. So I think Ancelotti, by being respectful, I think he's gonna go with him again against Haiti, and then if it doesn't work out, I think he will bring him off and bring on Hendrick, because I never understand why would Hendrick never came onto the field. He bring on Cunha, which is more like a false number 9, and you get what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
I think Ancelotti got his tactics wrong. I think he got the personnel wrong. You get what I'm saying. So I'm hoping he's a very experienced coach, which I know he probably learned from his mistake. And you're going into a game against Haiti, but I don't think Brazil can take this game very lightly, because Haiti is a very tricky team, and if you
Yeah.
give them opportunity, they will pounce on you. But I'm assuming that Hendrick will get his chance the next game for sure.
Yeah, so moving on to Group E of Germany, blank Caribbean team, the tiniest team by population in the World Cup, debutant as well, Curacao, they were in an all Caribbean zone with the Reggae Boys, Bermuda and Trinidad and Tobago to qualify for the World Cup as well. We see Ivory Coast, Amad Diallo getting the best of the Ecuadorian team as well, 1-0, where it will set up this Ivory Coast for the very first time to challenge outside of the group stage in a World Cup for, the knockout round as well. But the 7-star general in Group E, Germany, where it stands, look, Germany scored first. Curacao, hit back as well. I want to get the player name, that score for Curacao, Comencia. I want to make sure, give him his props as well. But Nemcha, scored for the Germans first half. Just I think shy under 10 minutes in that game. I can say this. It was a very late good performance by the German, react very well after the Curacao team was very well, execute their plan in the first 20-25 minutes before that penalty as well. But I saw patches of the trending mistakes that's happened over and over, back in 2018, back in 2022 with the German team. And I think if they going to continue with this trend, playing against better opponent, defensively, I think there will be, issues with German team as well. And I see the Curacao team running through the channels, Germany, misplacing passes in the midfield. And it's a trend. You remember when, Irving Lozano, the Mexican, scored in Russia, straight down the spine in the wing of the German team as well. So it shows a bit of a trend of Germany giving teams these opening in a situation where they can pounce and goes in dangerous attacks as well. What's your takes on the attacking purse and the defensive of the liability of the German team?
Yeah, I think you're correct on that. I think as a German supporter, I think that's one of my concern. I don't think Germany. I don't think I have a problem with German scoring goals and stuff like that. I think when they come up against better opposition where teams can pounce on your mistake and leaving their backline up, they play with a very high line, something like what Bayern Munich does. You get what I'm saying? So I think that that's something that Nagelsmann really gonna have to fix, because there's no way you should be allowing so much space. When you come up against better opposition, they will punish you. But I think I'm not sure that Germany is gonna able to change the way they play, because that's just the way they play. That's all they literally play, just like Bayern Munich. It's all gone. We basically gonna outscore you. If we win, we win. If we lose, we lose. That's how it goes. I just think that that's how Germany gonna be like. If you watch the Bundesliga, that's all 90% of the team that play in the Bundesliga. Very high line, Dortmund, very high line. You get what I'm saying? Gun blazing, attacking football. So I think I think they will be good enough to get through this group unbeaten. But I think when the big guns start coming up against in the knockout stage, they're really gonna have to at least adjust that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at something here, with the German where I want to discuss with you. So this is around what, the third win since Germany left the title, beating Sweden in 2018 and beating the Costa Rican team 4-2 in the last edition in Qatar as well. A German team that have won the World Cup so many times, four times as well. Big teams, coming back from the days of West Germany, you know, 2002 final, got beaten by Brazil, host the World Cup, remodel, reshape their whole football infrastructure and everything, and the identity and the philosophy. And we look at Germany, it pays off. You saw the likes of Kroos, Muller, Götze, these players came up in this new, philosophy that they brought up as well, after they host that World Cup. But 2014, I wouldn't believe if someone tells me that, a former world champion like Germany would have won just around 3 games since then in the World Cup. That's how bad it is. But what is the real expectation after seeing this team playing against Curacao, moving forward? You finished quarterfinals off last year with Spain as well, narrowly missed out and the best of four in that tournament.
I think this World Cup I feel a little bit more confident, even though I don't think anything's gonna change as far as defensively. But I feel like attacking wise, the attacking is a little bit more fluid. You get what I'm saying? I think it's a lot more youth. You get what I'm saying? I like Nathan Brown. I think he's gonna be a very top prospect for coming. I think he's going to Bayern Munich. So I think going forward, I think this team's a little bit. I think I could put them very exciting team. As I said, they just missed out in the quarterfinal against Spain. So I like what I'm seeing. You get what I'm saying? I think the football is a little bit more faster, not too slow. You get what I'm saying? And don't forget, this German team could have panicked against Curacao after what over the last couple of years what happened. You get what I'm saying? Because people when that goal went in, that Curacao scored, everybody was saying that here we go again. You get what I'm saying? Germany in the World Cup, messing around, and they never take their foot off the gas. They basically step it up. They score several goals. You get what I'm saying? Some people might say, "Yo, this is probably one of the worst team in the World Cup." I disagree. Every game is very serious. Look at Spain. They draw against they draw. You get what I'm saying? So you have to take every game serious, and you only can beat the opposition that you're playing. So I
Yeah.
like what I'm seeing. I just think that defensively we have to shape up a little bit better.
Yeah, so all right, move on to the next two contenders in Group E. Ivory Coast, beating Ecuador. This is the first time Ivory Coast is beating a South American team as well. Let's what's your takes, because this Ivory Coast team in the World Cup, they've always getting some very group of the. You remember in 2010, I think it was Brazil, Portugal, and them in the same group. And I think before that, in 2006, it was Netherlands and Argentina in their group. But this team, this is a big moment for the first time to get out of this group.
Yeah, I think they definitely have a chance after winning that first game against Ecuador. I think I did have kind of have Ecuador to edge them a little bit, but they were very impressed me. They impressed me so much. You get what I'm saying? So I think they definitely have a chance at getting out of this group. You get what I'm saying? But I think if they can get any results, any positive results against that game against Germany, I think they definitely gonna have a chance. But very young team. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I like Demante. I think this is the first time I ever watch him play live. The guy is really good. You get what I'm saying? Very confident as a youngster. So I think they definitely have a chance to get through this group for sure, for sure.
Yeah, so this is the youngest 11 for Ivory Coast starting a World Cup game since 2006 with that team with the likes of Didier Drogba and the Toure brothers and stuff like that. But moving on from Group E, we talk about Group F where Japan and Netherlands play to a 2-2 draw. Japan have to, do the hard work, two time in a row to get back as well. Nakamura and Kamada, with that goal off the bench. I think Virgil van Dijk with a very fantastic header. I think Somerville with a very good curl off his left foot. Really started by Ryan Gravenberch in the half space over on that right hand side as well. This Japanese team is not a team that usually panics, in game. They would have tapped a zone with Germany and Spain in it already. I think that was the last World Cup where they tapped that group. All right, well, yeah. So they would have went into some big groups, with some huge European teams and tap that group. But I'm going to give the stats as well. In the last World Cup, Netherlands would have scored 10 goals in it, and they also scored six of those goals, in the second half. Also, Japan have scored 5 goals in the last World Cup, and four of those all came in the second half. So these two teams arguably scored their most goals in the second half. And I was saying as well, with a nil-nil first half, there has to be, goals in that second half, especially, we know that how these two teams, can really react. But both teams really came out sharp in that second half and really gave us a very good show in that game.
Yeah, I think that game, Japan against Netherlands, was the game of the tournament. So for me so far, as I said in previous videos, and I did state that this Japan team is gonna be a team where it causes a lot of chaos for teams. You get what I'm saying? I don't think many teams going into if they make it to the knockout stage, I don't think many teams would want to face this Japanese team because, as you said, they don't stop running. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they tend to get really good in the last stage of the game. So I think they definitely, and I like their coach. I think he's a very tactical coach. He made the changes the right time. He make adjustment very at the right time. And these guys, they play so many different ways. And I think they're gonna be the one to watch out for sure.
Yeah, Tunisia, without seeing that game, you did that game, you did that watch along as well yesterday. Day before yesterday as well, where Tunisia was blank 5-1 as well. Isak, looked really sharp in that game. You're talking about Gyökeres, really looking good. I think you have some very good bright moments, as the first half that I watched as well. Didn't see any of the second half live. I watched highlights, but what's your takes though on that very impressive thumping win by the Swedish?
Yeah, I think it was a very impressive, win for Sweden. I think first half was very, I would say balance of play. I know Sweden was up 2-0, and then Tunisia got back in the game with one goal before the first half, before the second half, and then I think Sweden just came out second half and just wiped Tunisia out the way. I like that combination with Isaac and Victor Gyökeres up top. You get what I'm saying? I'm not the biggest fan of
Yeah.
Gyökeres, but he's did his thing. He did his thing. I think that link up play. If Isaac have the ball, Gyökeres is on the run. If Gyökeres have the ball, Isaac is on the run. So I think what I really want to know if they're gonna have enough midfield depth to support them when they come up against better opposition. But I like that two link up play. I think they're gonna score a lot of goals if they get chances.
Yeah, I think we missed a group where I want to pick back before we go on to talk about the group H where Spain and group G where Belgium drew with Egypt as well. But the game that Australia beat Turkey at, yeah, Matt Ryan, was the man that left out. Beach, was in the goal where, most saves as a debutant goalkeeper since 2002 versus Brazil. That was a Turkish goalkeeper, hold that record as well. His name is Rusto. But Turkey versus AFC teams in the last four games, averaged 3.5 goals per game. And also in the game that they played, more shots without a win in the World Cup history. They have 30, and I think Arda Gula have 8 out of that. So almost that's a 50% of the shots that Turkey took as well. But Australia, their lowest possession rate as well, percentage for them 28 in the World Cup as well. What's your takes? Because I think that we talk about this South Africa team where the wingers are the wing backs wasn't prolific enough and they just couldn't get their attacking players out in that final third where they can beat someone, get the ball in, or they be outlets where they quick to the transition as well after the opposition team lose that ball and the turnover. But I think that player for Australia, one named Italiano that played on the right hand side and Bass was playing on that left hand side, and I think those two players really did enough for me to help their team and give them outlets whenever that team need to hit their counterparts in around the transition.
Yeah, I think if Turkey and Australia play another 90 minutes, Turkey would have never scored in that game. You get what I'm saying? I think Australia really, really, when they talk about a low block, I think
Yeah.
I saw so many low block after World Cup so far. I think that's one of the best low block I ever seen. These guys were really, really working very hard to keep this Turkey team up. But very impressive win. I think I'm very impressed with. I don't know how you pronounce his name. Is it Arikidu? That's what you pronounce it. The goal scorer.
Aaron Kuda, something like that.
Aaron Cook.
Aaron, yeah.
Yeah, I was very much impressed with him. He breaks, he made the right decision, brilliant goal for him. So I think this Australia team is gonna be very good. I think I think America in that next game is going to be
Yeah,
very
yeah,
good. I think that game is
yeah.
going to be very tasty. And I was very disappointed with Turkey. I think Turkey was doing the same thing over and over.
Hmm.
They didn't know what they're gonna do. So I think they're gonna be definitely better in the next game. So I think Australia. I feel like every prediction we make, everything is through the window. You get what I'm
Yeah,
saying? But
yeah, yeah. I even looking at this Australian team, in 2022, where they're in Group D with France, Tunisia, and Denmark, and they
yeah.
both beat Denmark, and Tunisia in that group to advance and 6 points with France as well. And if you look at their last 5 games in the World Cup, goes back to last edition, they only lost 2 games, and those 2 games came versus France and Argentina, the two finalists of that last World Cup as well, and the last two teams that would have won the World Cup. So that's nothing to be ashamed about. So that tells you that if this team can beat a Denmark team with Christian Eriksen, Schmeichel, these type of players, for Denmark and the likes of Tunisia, they beat those two teams last campaign and advanced to the knockout where it was a very good game. And if you remember that game against Argentina, where it was very close as well. But it tells you, man, Australia is doing something prolific, and I think they're growing in stature in the FIFA World Cup as well. But I want to get more into the games that would have played yesterday as well, where Spain and Cape Verde drew, and Uruguay draw with Saudi Arabia in Miami. Um, a national hero at this moment in the making for Cape Verde. That goalkeeper, his name goes by Vozina. A man that was what 50K followers. No, he's almost, if we're speaking at this moment, are almost around 6-7 million followers on his Instagram page. But it's crazy. Cape Verde. I mean, first time in the World Cup, small island again, Portuguese descent. That shows you how much, the teams are growing and really getting good heritage players, in for the national team as well. But I mean, who could have predicted this? Spain drew, 1-0 versus a Cape Verde team.
Yeah, I think I remember a couple of days ago you was talking about this Spain team, and I was saying that this Spain team is very average, and you were saying that no, it's not average, a very good, still a good team. And I was like, I think they are still a good team, but I think that they're missing a striker. They're missing someone to put the ball in the back of the net. But very credit, you have to give all the credit to Cape Verde and that keeper, as you say, his name was Vessel.
Bosina.
Vosina, 40 years old. You get what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
This guy was all over the place, and you get what I'm saying. But I think you have to give it all the credit to Cape Verde. I think when last time I watched them in the 2 seasons ago when they played the first time I saw them, the African and Asia Cup, and they were a very good team. You get what I'm saying? And don't forget they have a lot of heritage players also from Portugal and stuff like
yeah,
that. So you get myself. Spain. I don't think I'm really, really disappointed with them, but I feel like the main guys wasn't on the field as yet. The Lamals, the
yeah,
Nico Williams, they get what I'm saying, the Olmo. So I think Spain will be all right. I just feel like when they come up against team like this, we're very stubborn. They get what I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
You
No
you
rule
need
behind.
you need somebody more than just Ferran Torres up top and. But I think Spain will be all right. And kudos to Kate Verde. I think they should get all the credit for this game. Brilliant defense, one of the best goalkeeper performance in the World Cup.
Yeah, I think they came out of a African qualification group with Cameroon, where they topped their group and only lost one game as well. So I think one of the big difference, with this opening fixture of Spain in this World Cup than compared to their entire Euros, I just think Nico and Yamal, both players were really fit. Both players were really on farm, during that Euros as well. Both players are a bit younger. And you could say I'm much more hungry. I want to show a bit more poise as well, to show that, listen, the La Roja team is back again on track to try to capture, one of those major titles at what they did 08, 010, and 012, in that generation, of players as well. I just think, as soon as, they can get one of those players really fit and going, they just need someone that, have the maverick type of a player that, can take on players, have very good dribbling skills and players that will be very good 1v1 and can create moments. And you could see when Yamal came on, he created a few clear cut opportunity as well for his teammate. But again, they didn't take the opportunity as well. So you could see a slight difference with the Spain team as soon as Yamal came on. But you could see that he probably wasn't really ready as yet, but you could say it was a bit too late. He didn't really get into the rhythm. It was a bit much of a difficult game for him to really to grow in as well. So the pressure was on as well as a teenager coming into his first World Cup. So there were so many optics around the game as well. And Nico came on in the back end of the game, didn't really do anything in the game, to be honest. But again, if they can get someone and if they can really to develop a player like a David Villa, assess Fabregas, somebody like, who can put the ball in the back of the net, maybe, type of a player, like Diego Costa, they need somebody. And you could see that this is a very struggling Spain team. I think since last time they won the World Cup, I think they haven't passed the run of 16 in the last three editions as well. So it tells you that, how much poor, of a Spain team these players are, so let's see, what will happen as well in Group H. But Saudi Arabia and Uruguay, would have seen Al Amiri, scored a goal for Saudi Arabia in the 41 minute, and Arujo hit in the last 10 minutes of this game. But again, we would talk about a Saudi Arabia team that won their first game versus the team that go on to win the World Cup, and also Uruguay team, not so much of a prestige, European based players. You're talking about players still trying to find their feet in Europe. But Nunes, what a waste of a talent. I mean, from Benfica, to Liverpool to the Saudi Pro League. Where next? Is he going back home to the Uruguay, local league? You just never know. But it's just a wasteful talent of Darwin Nunes. But Uruguay, I'm not really expecting much from them. If they do surprise me, I will give them the credit. But I'm not expecting this team to go anything past run after the two.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct. Correct on that. I just think that there's too many overwhelming players not playing at the highest level anymore. Ugarte, Bentancur, Nunes. Maybe only player that really playing at a certain level is Valverde and
Yeah,
Arugo. Arugo from
Barcelona,
FC. No, 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 not Arugo from Barcelona. There's another Arugo that play
the
in
one that scored.
Yes, I like him. I'm
Okay,
very
you're
impressed.
talking about him.
Yeah, I was very impressed with him. The left winger with slash player left arm left back. But I think I don't know. I don't. My expectation was very low with this
Uruguay.
Yorker team. Yeah, team. So they have declined over the last couple of years. The no more Luis Suarez, no more Cavani. You get what I'm saying? So I was very good game, very exciting game. Very competitive game. Saudi Arabia. Still trying to push over their weights. You get what I'm saying? As you said, they able to get that win in the first in the last World Cup. But I just think that both teams not sure, no, not too sure about what's gonna happen in the next game. But I think you guys should still have enough to get through this group, regardless of the team. Okay? Because I just think that they
Yeah,
should able to beat Cape Verde, regardless of what Cape Verde. Because I just don't see Cape
I,
Verde.
I just think at some point Cape Verde might run out of steam.
Yeah, yeah. I just don't see they doing that. I don't see the keeper having such a outstanding master game again. But I think you should just have enough quality to push through. But I just don't see they go anywhere from maybe the round of 32.
Maybe if he go on to have another game like that, against Saudi Arabia and Uruguay, his Instagram followers will pass Ronaldo and Messi and Neymar combined together. Look, I let me say this, man. This man Instagram is going so fast on the rise. Even just getting close to Thierry Henry. Followers at this moment. You get what I'm saying? But Group G, where it will be the last group of this reaction as well. Belgium played to a 1-1 draw after coming back, after a late goal flourish. It was a own goal, but it was all caused by the man that was on the pitch.
Ah, cool.
Not even for 2-3 minutes, Lukaku. But Ashori, scored a wonderful goal for the Egyptian as well, set up by the Egyptian king Mohamed Salah, and it was on his birthday. When you think that Mohamed Salah should be receiving gift, he was, handing out gifts, to his teammate. So again, that's I think the Belgium team played a very good second half, if you ask me, but the Iran and New Zealand team, 2-2 draw. Iran have to come back twice. Telling you about some of these small teams. Not many of us will predict, this New Zealand team. We did not give them any rights to get a point or to finish outside and get into the knockout run as well. But it seems like there's something possible with this New Zealand team. They rank 85th in the world. Yeah. But Iran team continue to qualify for World Cups after World Cups. It was a very emotional day as well. First time this team
Yeah.
is playing around over in this quarter as well. A lot of these Iranian players first time probably stepping foot in America as well. But the first, I would say, right up to before just the player scored a brace as well. This is a player that played in the Scottish League. At this moment for Motherwell, and Celtic is in form. Rangers is in form at this moment, but this team was right in it, to at least get a full 3 points in this game.
Yeah, I was very impressed with how they break New Zealand. Chris Wood up top was very experienced. The captain. He set up both goals for this New Zealand team. Sad they didn't have enough to create chance for him. I think he only get one good chance really half when he made that header in the second half, where it was very hard chance to take. But Iran, I think Iran team is very exciting. I said this before. They play quick football. You know, it was a massive turnout. They were playing in California. I think they have such a good support. I heard that the commentator said that there's a massive Iran community in California up that side. So that's why that's one of the reasons why that game was there. You see what I'm saying? So very impressive game. This group is not gonna be easy. You know, people might look at it and say, "Yo, Belgium and Egypt should top this group," but I feel like New Zealand, especially Ireland, should have something up their sleeve, because I'm not really impressed with Belgium so far, because I feel like Belgium have been very poor
Yeah.
since the last couple of years. So I think this group is up for grab for anybody to make it out, because I think so far in this World Cup, no team you should able to take for granted, because every team is playing for their country, playing very hard. So I think those next couple games are gonna be very interesting and see where it go from here.
Yeah. So people, that would be it, for the Nick and Dad podcast. Much love and respect to each and everyone as well. Don't forget on your way out to smash the like button and subscribe to the video.